when I'm doing Q&A, often people will raise their hand and they'll ask the question, John, are leaders born? And when they ask me that question, I always give them the same answer. Of course they are. I mean, think about that question. Are leaders born? Well, of course they are. I've never met an unborn leader, okay? Now what they're asking is not are leaders born. What they're really asking is when people are born, are there certain people that have leadership gifts, and because they have those gifts, they go to the front of the line, just as some people don't have leadership gifts, so they go to the back of the line. That's what they're really asking.
Hi, I'm Chris Godey. I don't know about you, but I know that I love to absorb content. There's so much free content out there. However, one challenge that I do have is that I often struggle to then take that content and put it into practice. I don't change the habits that I need to based off of the video that I've been inspired by. If that's you, I want you to watch this video, and then I would love for you to comment, and we would love to hear your thoughts below.
To leadership well, first of all, we have to continually learn, unlearn, and relearn. And this is a cycle that continues. We're continually learning, but some of the things we have learned in the past, we have to unlearn, and we have to relearn. In the Harvard Business Review, when they were talking about a college bachelor degree, this was very interesting. This was about a year and a half ago in the Harvard Business Review. They said that the average lifespan of a bachelor's degree in college is now 5 years. Wow. 5 years after we get that bachelor's degree, basically everything that we're experiencing is new, and all of the knowledge and training and classes that we had, they have about a 5-year lifespan. I was reading the other day about the most important competencies that are needed right now in organizations, and they named 3: adaptability, communication skills, and learning agility. And as I looked at those 3, adaptability is all about leadership team, the ability to adjust. And learning agility is all about leadership. Wow. And so the ability to move quickly, the ability to change courses, the ability to U-turn, to back up, to pivot, all of this is essential to our success. At the top of this cycle is the word test. And we test all the time. We try new things. We do things that we haven't done before. We do things that a lot of times other coaching companies haven't been done before. So we're out in virgin territory, and we're kind of on the edge, and so we're doing a lot of testing. That's the first part of the cycle. Well, the second step is failing. We're testing, and then we're failing. And you say, well, why are you failing so much? Well, it's because we're testing so much. The more you test, the more you fail, because you're doing things that you've never done before. And so your failure rate increases dramatically. People that don't try new things don't have as many failures because they're doing things that they know how to do. But the moment you get out of your comfort zone, again, everything we want, everything we need, but we don't have is outside the comfort zone. That's why we test. Well, because we test, we fail. Now, that's okay. Failure's fine. Because when failure is looked at in the right perspective, out of that failure, you do your learning. So we test, we fail, and we learn. Failure is the byproduct of testing. Well, learning is the positive result of failing. And so when people talk about failures in their life, how did you change positively? How did you improve? How did you get better? So we test, we fail, and we learn. The fourth part of that cycle is improve. Out of our learning, what we discover, we say, okay, now that we know this, let's improve ourselves. And just like failure comes out of testing and learning comes out of failure, improvement should come out of learning. In fact, learning is overrated unless it brings improvement to people's lives. So the question is not, did you fail, but what did you learn? The question is not, did you learn, but how did you improve? So we're in this improving cycle of our life, and we're getting better. And then the last part is after we have tested, we've failed, we've learned, we've improved, we re-enter. We get back in the game. But what's interesting, it's a cycle. So what do we re-enter for? We re-enter to test some more, to fail some more, to learn some more, to improve some more, to re-enter some more. But take this cycle, and the first time we fail, test, learn, improve, re-enter, and now that we've re-entered, we go up a little bit more: test, fail, learn, improve, re-enter, test, fail, learn, improve, re-enter, test, fail, learn. You see, every time we do the cycle, we get a little bit better. We go a little bit higher because we have this. Well, that's a dynamic leadership example of what leadership is all about. Life expands or shrinks in proportion to our courage. And when we begin to be courageous in our efforts and in our educating, when we begin to be courageous, all of a sudden we begin to expand it. You see, uncertainty, what it does is, instead of us bringing out courage in our life, we kind of get caught in fear. And when people are fearful, their whole thing is, let's do nothing. Let's just kind of freeze. I have a stewardship company raises billions of dollars for nonprofit organizations. And clear back to 9/11, when 9/11 hit, we signed a contract every day during that year. And when 9/11 hit, we never signed a contract from September 11th through the end of the year. Now, what happened? Everybody froze. They weren't certain. Well, we just better hold what we have, okay? And the fear factor began to control them. Well, that's what's happened with COVID-19. And many people, they've just been very fearful, and they've said, wait a minute, I've just got to hold, I've got to stay steady. I'm like, wow, I'm not sure I want to move right now. I got to adjust, got to kind of, just catch where I am. And I would encourage you, as I teach the rest of this lesson, I would encourage you to have moral courage. Moral courage is just doing the right thing in face of adversity and difficulty. Here's what I know. People don't follow titles. They follow courage. And I'm hopefully going to say things that will help you to be courageous and step out and get out of your comfort zone. We have a choice. We can either curse the darkness or we can turn on the light. Sadly, in our culture, I see a lot of people cursing the darkness, and that doesn't improve anything. We've got to have the courage to go over and bring light into the situation. In my Laws of Teamwork book, I talk about the law of significance, and basically, I say that one is too small of a number to achieve greatness. And when we're the soloist, it's all about me. It's all about my concert. It's all about my presentation. And this chapter really helps me to leadership from being a soloist thinker to a conductor. And all of a sudden I realize I have the opportunity to make a lot of lives better. And that I have the opportunity to make some incredible, beautiful music. But it's not about me. Now it's all about the orchestra. It's all about what I'm leading. So this is all about, it's not about me, it's not about you. It's about us. In this chapter, I have a couple thoughts I want to give to you. And one is the fact that when you go and shift from being a soloist to a conductor, you go slower, okay? You go slower, but you go further. And we substitute speed for longevity. One of the things I teach about leadership is that leaders never win the race because they're not in a speed game. Because what do leaders do? Leaders take their people with them. You identify a leader by the fact that people are around them. And so when leaders cross the finish line, they don't cross solo, they cross with other people. In other words, other people cross that finish line with them. And it's not like, look what I achieved. It's look like we achieved. You see, this is all about taking the vision from me to we. And the moment that we begin to understand this, now all of a sudden, our success is not being the fastest person in the race. In fact, we have to slow down because we have to bring people with us. Any leader knows that if you're bringing people with you, you slow your pace down. And yet going slower allows us to go farther, because the question is not how heavy is the work. The question is how many people can lift the load. And the more people that can lift the load, the heavier that work can be. And so my challenge as a leader is patience. You see, what do leaders do? Leaders see more than others see, and they see before others see. That's what leaders do. More, bigger picture, before, faster. Okay? Now, the moment I see before others see, the tendency is, because I have a bias to action as a leader, is to take off. And my challenge is patience, is not to go before I can bring my people with me. And so, I want to cross the finish line, but when I cross that finish line, I want to cross it with people around me. That's where the success is. It's people coming with me at this important time. And I love this. I love the thought of you together, showing strength and courage, and you together making sure that that ball is being advanced. What is the one thing I will do this year to improve myself? What's the one thing? Not 5 things. What's the one thing that you're going to intentionally do this year to get yourself better? Take that challenge. Take action on that challenge today.
If you have the privilege of leading a team or an organization, and you would love help with enhancing your leadership culture, maybe even developing some of your high potential leaders, just follow the link on the screen, and we would love to connect with you.
You see, I believe 3 things. I believe that everyone can improve. That's why you're on this teaching today, because you're wanting to better your life. You're wanting to improve your life. I believe everyone can improve. I believe that everything can be improved. I don't believe there's such thing as we've got this down and this is the perfect way. I think everything we do can be improved. I think we can be improved. What we do can be improved. And I think that every day has improvement possibilities. And because of that, I'm passionate about leader shifting, because I don't want to miss those. And if I don't pivot, if I don't shift, if I don't move in the direction where growth is, I won't develop my potential. I was teaching recently, and I was talking about the fact that people, the greatest detriment of tomorrow's success is today's success. And very few things do we really learn out of success. I mean, I every month for 40 years, I have what I call learning lunches. I have a learning lunch every month with somebody that's bigger, better, faster than me. And I take them to lunch, I buy their lunch, and I ask them 7 questions. And one of the questions I ask them is, how's failure shaped your life? And I'm looking for improvement. I'm looking for how have they grown? How have they shifted? How have they pivoted to better themselves? And when we think of success, there's not a lot of learning that happens in success. In fact, when I ask, in those 7 questions, another question I ask is, what's the most important lesson you've ever learned? 90% of the time, the answer is that they learned something that really helped them out of difficulty, darkness, failure, adversity. 90% of the time. Seldom does somebody talk about what they learned when they were successful. We're too busy celebrating. We always learn when all of a sudden we got kicked out of our comfort zone. All of a sudden we failed. And so I was teaching the other day about the fact that everybody that's successful needs to do what I call a success autopsy. They need to take whatever success they have and do an autopsy on that little sucker and say, okay, that's good, but here. I believe that there's always an answer, and I believe really that there's usually more than one answer. And so I'm never content with the answer that I have or the answers. I just think that there are more answers and there are better answers. A few years ago now, I was already successful in writing books, and I think I'd sold 23, 24 million books. But I was not happy. I was saying I need to grow more in my writing. I could tell that I wasn't hitting my potential. And I looked at my books and I was very, they were doing very, very well, but I thought I need to make some changes. And I made some real radical changes. I brought somebody along and that was a very successful writer. And I said, coach me, teach me, how can I improve myself? And she was terrific. She helped me amazingly. instead of me being what I normally am, a thinker and a writer, she said, I want you to be a talker and a writer. I want you to talk out the thoughts that you're thinking and we'll put them into words. And it was revolutionary. It was totally different than anything that I had ever done before. What I've discovered is that when I think and write, I'm very practical, but when I talk and write, there is much more of my emotion involved in it. There's much more of my personality involved in that process. And so this incredible lady, whose name was Laura Morton, she just took me to an entirely new level in my writing. Now, here's what I want you to know: that I had already written and sold 23 million books. And so there are people all the time who say, well, why would you do a success autopsy? Because I want to do better. I want to keep growing. It's the difference between best and better. I'm right now giving you my very best effort, which means I'm giving you 100%. But when I'm done teaching you, if I have to teach this lesson tomorrow, I want to improve it. Best today is for the moment, but then I look at my best and say, now, how do I make best better? Best today is the floor tomorrow that I build off of. There's a leader shifting, a growing, a learning that just allows me to be successful. If people begin to learn good values and they begin to live those values out, honestly, they become more valuable to themselves and they become more valuable to others. I learned that because in 1992, I was writing for Time Warner, and this was the time when corporate America was just sowing bad seeds of distrust. And if you'll remember back then, you that would be old enough, Enron and some of the companies were just not doing very well. In fact, on Time magazine, they said, I think it was 1992, was the summer of distrust. And Time Warner, the publishing company, wanted me to write a book on business ethics. And I shared with them that I couldn't do that. And they asked why. I said, there's no such thing as business ethics. And they said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, there's just ethics. You see, if you have ethics, they work in your business, and they work in your family, and they work in life. There's no such thing as compartmentalizing ethics or any other value. It has to be integrated into our life. And that's one of the things I love about what you're doing. You're integrating values in the lives of other people. Well, I did write that book, and I based it on the Golden Rule. And I based it on the Golden Rule because that's accepted in every religion and every culture in the world. Do unto others, treat others as you want to be treated. But that was life-changing for me because all of a sudden, when we began to teach this value, I began to see the change that it brought in people's lives. And so I began to be committed to teaching values. Now, I have a nonprofit organization, Equip, that's trained 5 million leaders in every country of the world. And after training all of those leaders in a 19-year period, I said, let's now take them from trained leaders to transformational leaders. And how do you produce a transformational leader? By teaching them, having them learn and live out good values. We've been doing that now for the last 9 years. We literally go into different countries. We started with the country of Guatemala, then Paraguay, and then Costa Rica. We're ready to go into 2 other countries. And when I say we go into countries, what we do is we come in only by the invitation of the president of the country, and then we go to the 8 streams of influence, where the influence factor goes through the culture, government, business, religion, media, arts, health, sports, the major influencers. And we get buy-in from the top of those leaders to teach values in small tables, round tables. We call them transformational tables. Tables like this, where you get just a few people around the table and you begin to teach good values to people. We have found it to be absolutely life-changing. In fact, we have 22 countries in the world right now where the leaders of the country, presidents or prime ministers, have said, John, please come in and talk to us about your values. A little later, I listened to Earl Nightingale, who said, and this is where I made the shift from goals to growth, because I started off in my personal growth being very goal-oriented. And then I heard Earl Nightingale say that if you would spend 1 hour a day, every day for 5 years, get the picture, 1 hour a day, every day for 5 years, on the same subject, that after 5 years, you could become an expert on that subject. And I loved leadership. I was just learning leadership. And I thought, okay, I love this challenge. I'm going to take it. I'm going to spend an hour every day on the subject of leadership, every day for 5 years. And by the time I'm 30, I'm going to become an expert on leadership. So off I went. And every day I intentionally spent an hour in leadership. I read leadership books, material. I talked to leaders. I asked questions. I practiced leadership on a daily basis. I just did everything I could in the area of leadership every day. And I was thinking about that 5-year kind of time piece that Earl Nightingale gave me. And so I started literally counting down to 5. It's like 5, 4, 3. I was kind of like Cape Canaveral, getting ready to blast off as a leadership expert. But something happened. About halfway in that process of every day intentionally learning leadership and counting down 5, 4, 3, about halfway in that process of 5 years, something happened within me. I began to be a better leader. I wasn't only learning leadership, I was doing leadership. And what I was learning was enlightening to me, and I was learning more than I could have ever thought about leadership, and I was doing more than I could have ever thought about leadership. And there was an inward change. I was growing. I could tell I was growing. I was different. I was getting better. I was improving. You see, for the first 2.5 years, I kept asking myself the question, how long will it take? How long will it take? How long will it take? Well, how long will it take? Well, Earl Nightingale said it'd take 5 years before I could be an expert in leadership. Well, okay, it's 5, 4, 3. How long will it take? How long will it take? But the moment that I had the personal growth change happen in my life, I quit asking the question, how long will it take? And I started asking the question, how far can I go? How far can I go? Now, if I'm asking the question, how long will it take? I'm on a timeline, a deadline, and I'm goal-oriented. And when I talk to people that are goal-oriented, by the way, I think setting goals is fine. I'm not anti-goals. But when I talk to people that are goal-oriented, when they reach their goal, they kind of look around and say, now, what's next? What's next? But the moment that I change from asking how long will it take, being goal-oriented, to how far can I go, being growth-oriented, all of it changed. I can promise you this, if you're growth-oriented, you'll reach all the goals that you ever had in life. But when you reach your goal, you won't ask yourself what's next because you know what's next, that you're continually learning, that you're continually growing. And what I did is I left the goals, I shifted from goals, which has a timeline, to growth, which has no finish line. I'm 73. I don't have a finish line in my life. I'm still growing. I'm still learning. I'm still curious. I'm still asking questions. Why? Because I have a growth mindset, not a goal mindset. You see, when my mentor shared with me that growth is not automatic, he did me a huge favor, because one of the things I teach is I use this as a visual. I share with people all the time. I put my hand in the air like I am right now, and I can just say to them that growth is not automatic. That everything worthwhile in your life is uphill. Everything worthwhile is uphill. Now, if everything worthwhile is uphill, you can't be automatic going up the hill. You have to be intentional. Nobody automatically climbed a mountain. If you talk to somebody that's successful and said, how did you get on the top of the mountain? You never heard anybody say, oh my. I have no idea how I got up here. I just woke up and here I am on top. No. That person's not a great leader. They're on drugs. Come on. You know better than that. Everything worthwhile is uphill. So when you have a growth mindset, you are intentional to say that every day I'm going to go uphill. The growth that I'm talking about means that you're going to have to continually make personal changes in your life because it's impossible to grow without changing. Just as it's impossible to grow automatically, it's impossible to grow without making personal changes in your life. And that's always difficult for us because we like to stay in our comfort zone, and growth is not in your comfort zone. It's not in my comfort zone. It's outside of our comfort zone. In fact, here's what I would say to you. Everything that you need and want, but you don't have, is outside of your comfort zone. Everything. One of the advantages, I think, of COVID-19, it has knocked all of us out of our comfort zone, and it has caused us to what? Create. To think of another way to do business, think another way to serve our people, think of another way to add value to others. It's people say get out of the box. Well, COVID-19 kind of blew up the box, okay? But whenever we make changes, whenever we grow, it's uncomfortable. In fact, do me a favor, just cross your arms like I am right now. Would you please? That's it, just cross your arms. Now, let me tell you what I know about you doing this with me. You've crossed your arms thousands of times, just like me. And guess what? Every time you cross your arms, you cross them the same way. Every time. And if you cross them the other way, it would be very uncomfortable to you because you're not used to it. In fact, let's just practice it for a moment. Take your arms and just cross them the other way. And feel it's so uncomfortable. I mean, as soon as we do this, we go, oh my gosh, we want to get right back to the way that we're comfortable doing it. Sure we do. I do, you do. Clasp your hands with me for a moment. Now, let me tell you something. You've done this thousands and thousands of times, and every time you do it the same way. Now, there's another way to clasp your hands, but you don't do it that way. I don't do it that way. I always do it the same way. Because if we do it the other way, it'll be uncomfortable because we're not used to doing it. Let's just take our fingers and move them over one, clasp our hands. Oh, my. That's very uncomfortable. I mean, we immediately go right back to what we love, what's comfortable, what makes us feel right. Now, I say that because that's exactly the challenge that you and I have. When we are going to grow and become the people we need to be, we're going to have to make some changes. I will. You will. You need to go slower. You go from going slower. You got to go. The first thing I want to share with you is you got to go slower to go further. In other words, just simply, you got to slow down. Now, that's hard for a leader because we have a bias for action. We see more than others see. We see before others see. And the biggest challenge that a leader has is patience. And what I'm saying to you is when you become a leader, you personally, intentionally slow down because you want to bring people with you on the journey. In fact, I say leaders never cross the finish line by themselves. When they cross the finish line, they cross the finish line with others. That's all about mentoring. So when I say you go slower to go further, what that means is this. You won't go as fast if you include others in the beginning. But as you include others and mentor them and teach them and by example show them, you'll begin to pick up speed and you'll begin to pick up strength. And that strength of a team will allow you to go so much further than you could ever go by yourself. I sometimes call this going slower to go further the leadership dance. And in my book, I talk about the leadership dance. And basically, the leadership dance is this. I step ahead of the people, but I'm close enough for them to see me. I also walk beside my people so I can listen to them and hear them and lead them out of their concerns And I step behind my people so that I can encourage them, that I can empower them, that I can come in and be a tailwind to them and help them to do better and go further.
Wow. If you're like me, you watch a video like that from Maxwell Leadership and you just get inspired. I love how it's so practical. It just makes a lot of sense. But here's the challenge. We have to commit to each other. We have to commit to change, both in our personal lives and also our professional lives. Looking for more information about the Maxwell Leadership Certified Team? Follow the link below to learn more. We can't wait to hear from you and add value to your lives.